the isolation is feeling like you're the only one that's going through it. You're the only one that's struggling. No one else is having a hard time. But I think the truth is that a lot of women and moms are, we're just not talking about it enough. We're not normalizing these conversations. We're not checking in past how's the baby? Did the baby get enough sleep? Or how are you sleeping? But how are you really feeling?
Welcome to the Sparkle Project. I'm Emily, a divorced mom of two on my own journey to shine a little brighter. This podcast is here to help you protect your sparkle amidst the chaos and impossible expectations of modern motherhood. If you're a mom ready to choose yourself and shine, you are in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Sparkle Project. Today we are going to be talking all about the role that external support and specifically community support can have in a mom's journey back to herself. Really, how that outward connection can be such an important part of the internal connection to self. And joining me today is Julia Lotin, a licensed clinical social worker who is committed to supporting maternal mental health through her work. Julia, welcome to the Sparkle Project. Can you just go ahead and tell us about you and your work? Give us more. I know there's so much that you're doing in this space.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be having this conversation today. So, I am a mom of two. I am also a social worker, and in the beginning of my journey as a mom, was looking for community. And part of a huge part of my role is my nonprofit, Melanin Mass Moms. So, I've started as a Facebook group online. And so I'm executive director of Melanin Mass Moms. We are now a nonprofit, expanded from that Facebook group. And then also in my clinical practice, I serve moms in all stages of motherhood and perinatal. So from preconception to postpartum, I believe, and I know that we're always postpartum, there's always a journey, always a transition, always an identity shift that we're going through. So I say postpartum is forever and we're always working through something. So I work with moms in all stages. In the community, I work through my nonprofit, Melanin Mass Moms, supporting through a wellness event and community support groups and all of that stuff as well. So yeah, that's what I do and what I'm really passionate about, supporting moms in that area as well.
Yeah, I love how wide of a scope your work covers. It's that individual therapy relationship, but also the incredible work that you do in creating community. And I know that's going to be a lot of what we talk about here is the oftentimes lack
Yeah.
of community that we have entering into motherhood.
Mhm.
Can you take us back 8 years ago? You're a new mom, you're feeling lonely in your experience. What was that season like for you?
I would say the season was very isolating, and I was the first in my friend group to have a child. So, naturally you would kind of turn to your friends, but they weren't really able to provide the support that I needed at the time because they weren't moms and they weren't parents yet. So I was, during my maternity leave, partner went back to work and I was, looking for support. I would go to, library story times or I'd go to support groups for new moms, trying to find community. And they were wonderful. I made some friends there. And I also continued to find myself still feeling lonely in a sense of finding moms that looked like me at those groups. I was typically the only Black mom that was attending. And there's a lot of our experience as moms of color to find support in needing that validation from another mom of color to understand our experience. So I think that really drive me to find that community for myself. And I was looking for that. And I really didn't find a space that was offering support groups, even online, for specifically BIPOC moms to connect and to share our experience. And even the smallest to the biggest things, such as like hair care for our hair type, to pediatricians of color, to all of those little things that are so small but big and meaningful because it creates safety and finding people that look like you and that are able to relate to your experience. So for me, I would say that, like, starting my journey as a mom really rooted in isolation, but then like that drew me to like find a space to bridge that gap of like, where can we find the needs of the moms who are needing support, but then also aren't able to find it.
I relate so much to that piece of like not having your friend group
Mhm.
be able to be the people for you.
Mhm.
I had my first son when I was
Yeah.
23, and it was like definitely,
Mhm.
there was no one else in my life who was having kids at that time that I
Yeah.
was particularly close with. So definitely relate to that. And I
Mhm.
think it's interesting as you're saying all of that, really understanding the different needs that we have at any stage in our life, but as new moms, like, yes, it is
Mhm.
just like other people going through the experience with us, the validation, but there's also like specific needs we may have to who we are, or yeah, to finding like a
Hmm.
pediatrician and having like the resources of someone who knows the important factors in that decision. And it's not just like one
Yeah.
thing of like having a friend. What exactly were you looking for in creating community? Was it people who really understood what you were going through? Was it something else?
Yeah, I would say when you're looking for community and you find community of people that can understand, people that look like you, people have not the exact same experiences, but the cultural understanding. There's a lot that is unspoken that we don't have to explain, right? So when we're going to spaces where we don't have that, there's a lot of explaining, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of maybe like looking at you and being curious about like you're showing up, how you're representing yourself and having all these questions. But going into a space where you don't have to explain that, I think that creates a lot of safety, that creates a lot of acknowledgement and just like, I see you, like I've been there, I see you, I know what you're going through. You don't have to explain that to me. The cultural piece of it is just really, I think, was big for me in that experience because again, I think like just that internal dialogue of like, I get
Yeah.
you, like I've been there, I know what you're going through. I don't have to explain my story to you because parts of it were touched as well by you. So I think that was really big for me. So I was really looking for just solidarity as well. So that was the big piece of me and motivation to create Melanin Mass Moms. And then also to continue my work clinically with moms as well of like, I'm showing up to these support groups and a lot of moms like, oh wow, this is great to feel validated in a way that I don't have to explain. That relieves a lot of pressure, it relieves a lot of like stress and anxiety where it's like, okay, they get me, right?
Yeah. Like there's already so much else creating pressure in that time.
Hmm.
Like just to be able to show up and
Absolutely. Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. When you
Hmm.
decided to create, you said it started, Melanin Mass Mom started as a Facebook group. And then, I
Yeah.
mean, it's expanded way beyond that. You have this like thriving
Hmm.
community now. Tell me about that moment of like deciding you were going to create this for yourself. You weren't finding what you needed out in the world. What did that look like?
Yeah. I think a lot of things that are created that grow and become like amazing are created typically because you need it for yourself, right? And I think it was like a selfish need of like, I want this community, I need it. It was the age of like Facebook
Yeah.
mom groups. So there's a bunch of Facebook mom groups, and I'm like, these are great groups that I didn't find mine yet, one that I felt like I can be seen in. So I just went on Facebook and I was looking for like moms of color support group, Massachusetts, or Boston Black moms, or moms of color in Boston, or I couldn't really find that. So I was like, let me just put it out there and start the group. And then that's what happened. So I put it out there. And again, I didn't have a lot of mom friends, so I didn't have a lot of people to really to invite to the group. So I started inviting a few, and then they started inviting their friends, and then it just grew and grew and grew. It's 8 years in now. We're almost at 6,000 members, which is amazing. And on the Facebook group, it's so wonderful just to be able to go in there, ask a question. It's so like supporting, validating, safe space. I do have a team of moderators that help to create that safe. There's lots of rules because we want to make sure that it remains a safe space where moms don't feel judged. There's no attacking, there's no shaming, mom shaming. There's a lot of shaming for moms that happens in society and community. So we want to make sure this is a space where you're struggling, you can show up as yourself, and we're going to be here to support you, and we're going to be here to understand and offer that support. I just planted the seed, and the community just grew it, right? And help it to bloom. So all I did was really just plant that seed, and everybody else just kind of kept growing and feeding it and watering the community. And it bloomed into something that I really wasn't expecting. I was like, I just wanted a few friends to kind of chat with about my new motherhood journey. And then it grew into this something a lot larger than I expected. And leaning into that has been challenging for me because I'm very introverted and also just like I'm usually the behind the scenes person. So now that it's like thriving, I'm like, okay, I got to be out there. I have to tell people about this because this is wonderful. But also, it's been a space for growth for myself and my own journey. So that's been awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. I imagine that's quite validating, like knowing that what you needed in that moment, right? You created the space for yourself. This was the group that you
Yeah.
needed. It's now almost 6,000 members strong. What does that feel like to know that, like, you taking that leap to say, you know what, I'm going to build this for myself is now kind of answering the needs of so many other moms who may have felt isolated or may not have had a space to go to where they're totally, completely understood and allowed to just express the things that they need to express.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And I think the impact is it goes far beyond the number of moms that are
Mm.
in the group, but more so just the connections that I see in the posts. Like people really supporting each other and connecting and going off the group and, meeting up for play dates or like doing their own thing and creating their own events from the group or just like promoting their business. So I think the impact of the group beyond its size has been just like the connections and the growth that I've seen from other moms as well, that we've been able to provide just by like planting that seed and then everyone else really watering it to grow into this wonderful space. And it really motivates me to like continue doing the work that I do. The beginning of it was really tough because, it was really just grassroots and it still is. Like as a nonprofit, we struggle with like funding and all of those things. So like trying to get support from the community has always been difficult. But I remember in the beginning doing my first support group, and I think one person showed up and just feeling really discouraged of like, oh man, maybe it's not a need, maybe the community doesn't need it, maybe it's just me, and just really feeling discouraged. And then I just was like, you know what, there is a need, but there's barriers, right? There's lots of barriers that prevent moms from getting the support that they need, whether that's transportation, whether that's financial, whether that's childcare. So I was like, you know what, I need to keep showing up. And as much as that was discouraging, and that's happened a few times where we've had support and people they want to come. We had 40 people sign up for that first group and only one person showed up. So the need is there, but it's like, what are the other barriers that were preventing these moms from getting the support that they need? And that really motivated me to keep showing up because I'm like, no, the need is there. I have the desire and the drive and the skills to support them. So I need to keep showing up. And I think that really helped me to foster that sense of like motivation and passion for this work as well.
It's interesting, like, as you're talking about the connections that happen from this group and the different
Mhm.
layers of support that can come from coming together around like a targeted community. It's just
Mhm.
making me think about how in motherhood, we have kids, we have these babies, there's a lot of struggles that we go through that are related and like stem from the experience of being a mother in this world and all of that.
Mhm.
But how really like we are each whole, we have a lot of components about ourselves. It's not just about being a mom,
Mhm.
and how creating
Yeah.
space for people to show up in motherhood in this way doesn't just support people in their motherhood experience. It helps with being full individuals and being supported in that as well. And I think that's a really beautiful piece of it all. Like, it's important to acknowledge how,
Yeah.
I mean, I even just going back to what you said at the beginning, like, you consider yourself as someone who supports moms in postpartum, but you also consider postpartum to
Mhm.
be like after you have a child forever. And I think it's important to acknowledge like being a mother is always a part of our lives, and it's also not necessarily
Absolutely.
the only part of it isn't the only part of our lives. Like, there's so many other things.
Mhm.
The piece there too of like understanding the barriers to accessing supports and all of that
Mhm.
is huge, because if you create the supports, if the
Absolutely.
supports are there but people aren't able to access those, whether it's because of childcare, having an ability to get somewhere, working
Mhm.
crazy hours, access to funds,
Yeah.
whatever it is, women won't be supported in the ways that they would most benefit from being supported. And I think that's just one of
Absolutely.
those things too, where it's like being in the position to understand what those barriers are and to care about that
Mhm.
beyond just creating the space is massive. Like, it's almost more important.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Why do you think so many women feel so isolated in early motherhood, even when they are surrounded by people, even when maybe it looks like they're getting support? I know that experience of feeling isolated is very common.
Yeah, and it's very real. I think these days, society paints a picture and culture paints a picture of motherhood needing to be done in isolation and that strong mom that just does it all. I would say that a lot of moms feel isolated in their experience because other moms aren't talking about what they're really going through. And there's a lot of shame in saying that I'm struggling. A lot of moms feel guilty for saying I had a really bad day. So I think that a lot of times we're internalizing what we're experiencing because, oh, I've seen my mom friend or my mom or other moms in my life, and they're just doing it all. And they're not complaining, they're not struggling, they're not going through postpartum depression. They're just not naming it. They're not being real about it. They're not acknowledging it. They're also dealing with the shame and feeling really guilty for having those moments. So I think a lot of times the isolation is feeling like you're the only one that's going through it. You're the only one that's struggling. No one else is having a hard time. But I think the truth is that a lot of women and moms are, we're just not talking about it enough. We're not normalizing these conversations. We're not checking in past how's the baby? Did the baby get enough sleep? Or how are you sleeping? But how are you really feeling? Tell me how you're feeling. How's postpartum been like for you? Saying the word postpartum depression is okay. A lot of times it's the feeling of guilt and shame that creates this isolation. Like even though there's people around you and it looks like you're doing it all, it looks like you're doing everything. But when you're having that moment to really slow down and be with yourself, you're like, wow, I'm really struggling. Or wow, I really feel alone. Or like I could have a partner, but they're not going through the same thing that I'm going through. They're not having this experience that I'm shifting in my identity, and I don't have anyone to relate to with it. I think that's really what creates the feeling of isolation, of just like not being real with other moms. And then also just feeling like we have to strive for perfection. I have to strive for this idea of motherhood that doesn't exist in a way that's realistic to modern day society now. And it's okay that it doesn't, right? We can create visions of motherhood and we can create this experience that works for you and your family and that being enough.
Yeah. It really just your explanation of that really takes it from like the individual problem of feeling isolated to like, no, these are like cultural ways of being that perpetuate our isolation and
Yeah,
perpetuate our feeling like we're not doing enough. And it really is like that community
absolutely.
aspect is what has to be what breaks the
Hmm.
cycle because it has to be coming together
Hmm.
and being honest and sharing those experiences. I
Yeah.
want to get into that identity piece of feeling disconnected with
Hmm.
ourselves after becoming moms. And again, that's not always just in the beginning. I think the impacts of that can
Hmm.
last quite a while if we don't figure out how to reconnect. Your practice is
Yeah.
called Journey to Self. What does that
Hmm.
journey to self look like in your eyes?
Yeah. So that was definitely a motivation to create. So when I was thinking of a practice name, Journey to Self just came really instantly because I was thinking about my own identity as a mom and outside of just being a mom too, right? What does your journey look like coming back to yourself? And in my work as a therapist, I do a lot of what's called parts work, where we're thinking about like what are the different parts of you that you have? You can have this mom part, then I also have like this like really silly and funny part. I also have the spontaneous part. I have the part of me that it loves to travel. So I think when I'm working with my mom clients, really being able to honor that mom part and thank that mom part for all of the things that she has done for your body, for your children, for your identity, but then also ask her to step aside sometimes and be able to call in the other parts of you that I think sometimes when you're in the thick of motherhood, thick of postpartum, that you lose sight of or that you forget, and bring those back, whether that's through like going back to watching a feel good movie that you loved in the past before you had your children that always gives you all of the good feels, or that song that you love to dance to, or the friend that doesn't have children yet and you haven't reconnected with her in a while, but you two love doing this certain activity with, or specific places and memories that really help you to reconnect back to the version of you prior to having children. And then also acknowledging that there's grief in that as well, because there's certain parts of that that just don't resonate anymore, and that's okay too. I think part of the journey back to self is recognizing like what are the parts that just aren't me anymore, and being able to recognize and honor and acknowledging the grief in that. Because like, man, I really miss that person, but I don't see her in me anymore, and that's okay too. And then also calling forth the parts that are emerging, the new versions that are the new identity, the new parts of you that are coming up to you, and being able to acknowledge that part too. So I think the journey back to self is just kind of being honest about where you are, acknowledging the past parts of you that you still love and you still want to reconnect with, grieving that version that don't connect anymore, and then also being open to maybe like this new possibility of this new identity that involves motherhood. And what does that look like? Or what does that feel like to be in that version of yourself too? And where can you feel grounded in that?
It makes sense why when we live in a world that wants us to be like the mom who's doing everything, like we expect that we're going to be able to show up in
Mhm.
that way. And then there's this disconnection that can happen because we're exhausted as new moms and
Mhm.
all of these things, right? Like it makes
Yeah.
sense. But the piece of like journeying back to self isn't just as simple as getting back to some old version of you. And I think if we don't recognize that fully of how it's those pieces, it's also the letting go and it's also the evolution.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be complicated, but if we're not acknowledging all those pieces, then it feels like there's something
Yeah.
wrong in that journey. So it
Yeah.
makes a lot of
Absolutely.
sense. When women come to you,
Yeah.
what are they usually missing? Like, what are they seeking out when they come to you?
Yeah, I'd say really it's just it's support and understanding. So sometimes women come to me and they're struggling and they're not able to identify why because again, this idea of motherhood that's really rooted in standards and cultures that aren't
Mhm.
realistic. I think sometimes they're like, why am I struggling with like rage or why am I struggling with feeling irritable or why am I depressed? Like I shouldn't be feeling this way. Other moms have gone through this and they haven't struggled. So I think a lot of times it's like that validation of like, hey, like a lot of moms are also struggling. We're not talking about it. And sometimes like when I just start off sessions with like some psych ed around like what perinatal mood and anxiety disorders are, and that's usually what I'm seeing in my clients are those who are struggling with some perinatal mood disorders and sometimes just being able to recognize that. And there's also support for that. There's also, people who are trained to support you there. But that validation and that like acknowledgement goes a long way of like, it's okay to be where you are right now and say that out loud to yourself. And that doesn't mean that you're failing as a mom. That doesn't mean that anything that you're doing is wrong. We're not meant to be doing it all. We're not meant to be doing it all without support. We're not meant to be robotic and not human, right? It's okay to have those days where we're like, man, this is really tough and hard. I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting to be doing this alone either. I wasn't expecting to not have community. I wasn't expecting to have all these people at my baby shower, but after I give birth, they're not around, they're not calling to check in. I wasn't expecting people to only be worried about the baby, but no one's checking in on me. I think a lot of that kind of comes into play in how mom is feeling after having a baby or going through some identity changes and having that moment of grief to acknowledge like, man, there's a lot that we weren't expecting when becoming a mom. And that definitely impacts our mental health too.
Yeah. I mean, I think most of us can relate to that for sure. So in motherhood, like a lot of times we don't have that community that we thought we were promised, that like village that I think we all
Mhm.
deserve, but realistically in modern culture, that's not really a given for many of us. And like you said, a lot of times that's kind of a letdown of like, I thought this was going to be how it was and it's
Mhm.
not. What do you see as
Yeah.
the connection between that and then the kind of sense of identity loss or the sense of disconnection that can happen in motherhood?
Yeah, so I'd say that community and support, healthy partnerships, those are all protective factors when it comes to mental health in the perinatal period. So having those can make a huge difference in how a mom is feeling about herself, about her experience. So those things are protective factors that support the well-being of a mom during those really transformative periods in her life. When it comes to identity, I think that having people around you who are in your corner, who are backing you up, who are supporting you, who allow you to have bad days, who allow you to rest and say, hey, you've been up with the baby all night, go sit down, or I'm coming over and bringing you a meal. Like those simple acts of care, like that makes a huge difference. And I think it also allows space for that identity exploration to happen. Like I can't think about my identity or who I am if living in survival mode with no support. I think that when we're in those moments, that creates further distance with self because you're like, I don't have the space to think about myself when I need to take care of these kids. I need to figure out what I'm going to do for the rest of the night. I need to go through this night routine alone or with little support. So I think when we have that support, when we have people in your corner who are checking in, who are acting with care, that allows space for me to now slow down. That allows space for me to have those breaks from my kids. That allows space for me to now think about, oh, who am I now? I can breathe, I can slow down, I can be in my body because I have that support. And then that creates more space to explore that identity. Where if we don't, it's like I don't have the mental load to think about my next meal, let alone who I am. A lot of times, like thinking about community and support and village and acknowledgement and care as protective in the nature, like it's really protective. And I think it allows moms to really have the space to really feel connected to themselves and they feel supported by their people around them.
Yeah. Would you say for the most part, moms don't have the level of support in that newly postpartum period to be able to like maintain that sense of connection with identity? I mean, and just thinking about the way like our current culture across the board functions.
Yeah, I would say for the most part, I do see a lot of moms who I'm working with don't have that support to be able to do that work or even the mental capacity because there is so much more that is on their plate. There's so much more that they're juggling, that they're caring for, that caring for self becomes last on the priority
Yeah.
list. So I'm working with the mom. We're like, how can we move yourself a little higher on that list, right? And can there be days where you're the top one on that list? Like, and that's okay. It's not. And I think a lot of times mom deal with guilt around that of like, I need to prioritize myself
Yeah.
today. And that's really hard and guilty and maybe some moments of shame of like, oh, why am I taking this mental health day where I should be doing this instead? I should be productive. And like, that's very productive to take care of yourself. So it's really shifting that narrative in that way as well. And then also another component to it is the understanding as
Hmm.
well and appreciation, right? So being there is one thing, but also when I'm working with moms, we do postpartum mental health planning in the work that I do. So it's like, who's going to be handling the meal prepping? Who is going to be doing, the laundry, the housework? When visitors come over, can you give them something to help you with, something tangible, like, hey, can you put a load of laundry for me? So what does support actually look like? And you can ask for things. It's okay to say, like, can you help me with this? Or can you hold the baby so I can go take a long shower that I haven't been able to take all day? So I think support, when we talk about support, I really want us to be specific about what does that mean and what do you need and being okay with saying what you need. And I think that absolutely helps with identity because then you're able to acknowledge your needs. And when you're able to acknowledge your needs, able to acknowledge yourself. So right now, myself needs, some time away. And myself needs like a few minutes to just be in silence. Myself needs, some moments to ground my body and being able to acknowledge your needs through asking for help. I think that's a big part of that as well.
Yeah, as you're saying all of that, it's almost like there's the support that is like the support in validation and in the understanding and just feeling seen. But there's also the support that is the
Mhm.
creating space for you to do the things you need to do for
Mhm.
yourself. And that piece right there of knowing
Absolutely.
what to ask for, knowing what you need to clear
Mhm.
that space. Because as you're saying, like there's so much that we're expected to do on so little sleep and like all of these things and
Mhm.
having that
Yeah.
space created for us and knowing that it's okay to ask for that,
Mhm.
knowing that that is something that we need makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Kind of fast forwarding in the motherhood journey and knowing that so many of us do have that sense of identity loss. What role can community play in kind of the rediscovering process? You know, this is a sparkle project, and I like to think about us finding our
Mhm.
sparkle. How do you see community coming together playing a role in that?
Yeah, I think community has a big role in that because there's other people just like you who are going through the same thing. So can we go through it together? And really being able to find your tribe if you don't have one. Sometimes it does involve, if you're like me, that's introverted and doesn't like to put yourself out there. But sometimes it is intentionally finding the people that align with you that help you to feel good and being in spaces that really help you to feel grounded, that help you to feel more like yourself, that help you to feel like, okay, I am not alone, or this person understands me, or it's okay to be exactly where I'm at right now is so huge. Also, community allows for space for wellness, for fun. It doesn't always have to be these deep conversations about your mental health. It could also just be like I'm joining, this Pilates class, or I'm going to yoga with my friends, or we're going out for brunch, and that feels good because I'm surrounded by my friends, people that I enjoy company with. So I think sometimes like keeping it simple is okay too, and just being around people that help you to feel good, like that is such a really invaluable support, just to be seen by someone. And community doesn't have to be large, it doesn't have to be this like big task. It can be people who make you feel good and to really help you feel supported in that way too.
Yeah. For a mom who is listening, who maybe feels like she doesn't really have a village, where would you advise her to start in seeking that kind of support?
Yeah, I think like really leaning into, what's in your neighborhood and what you have accessible to you. It can be intimidating to go to, new mom support groups, or reach out on like online Facebook mom groups or online support groups in that way. But those have been great ways that I've been able to connect with other moms. Or if you're interested in something particular, really kind of, again, putting yourself out there to make those intentional connections, because if you're wanting that community, you also have to put yourself in there so others can find you. So I think it's also, being okay with leaning into that, of like trying that something new so that you can find someone that is aligned with you. I'd say like, going to new mom groups, going to community events, again, things that are accessible, that are already happening. And maybe it's just like taking that leap of faith to like put yourself in that situation to have a connection.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the truth of the matter, right? Like, you have to show up if you want others to show up for you. You have to be available to them.
Yeah,
And that can be so scary.
absolutely. It's so scary, so intimidating. Definitely.
What is one small thing that a mom could do today to start reconnecting with herself in a deeper way, to start that journey to self?
Yeah, I would say one small thing that a mom can do to start that journey to self is to recognize how you're talking, how you're speaking to yourself, and be kind to yourself. I think that that's where I would start, is like, can I give myself some words of affirmations? Can I give myself some kindness? Can I give myself some compassion? When I notice that inner critic is being so critical about how I handled something with my kids, or how I did a task or didn't do a task, can I be kinder to myself? Starting with just like, how are you talking to yourself? How are you speaking to yourself? What are the words that you're giving yourself? And can I offer some kindness to what I'm going through? Can I offer some moments of joy? Those like small micro moments are so helpful. Sometimes allowing yourself to say, like, I don't have to rush through this meal. I can actually sit down and eat it. I can enjoy this coffee and actually taste the flavors that I got today, instead of just like taking it in 5 seconds and moving on to the next task. So I think sometimes it's giving yourself permission to pause and slow down. And also, being kind to yourself, offering that same compassion that if my friend was going through that, I would be so compassionate to her. Can I give that to myself as well?
It's like being part of your own support system, being part of your own community, and showing up as a
Mhm.
friend to yourself. Like, we can
Yeah,
all do that, even
absolutely.
though, like, most of us have been. There's reasons why that's
Mhm.
not necessarily the
Yeah.
default, but we have
Yeah.
ourselves. We can show
Yeah.
up for ourselves.
Yeah. I think it's also just how you speak to yourself, being kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I like to end the conversation with a question about you and how you protect
Mhm.
your sparkle. I think of the sparkle as like the core of who you are, this energy that makes you you, that sense of identity, all of those things. How do you protect your sparkle?
Yeah, I present my sparkle by allowing myself to be who I am in every situation that I am in, allowing myself to show up authentically. And I am introverted, can be quiet, I can be, to myself, and that's okay. And allowing myself to show up in spaces and just be okay being myself. So I protect my sparkle by allowing myself to just be myself and being okay with that. Also allowing myself to romanticize my life sometimes and enjoy the small joyful moments. Also, just being able to remember that outside of all of the roles that I have and I hold, that I'm still myself and I still have that self within me. So I think being able to protect my sparkle by acknowledging her, the inner self.
Yeah. Beautiful. Julia, thank you for being here and sharing all of this with us.
Thank
If
you.
listeners want to connect with you, either maybe they're in Massachusetts and are interested in what you are doing in terms of community there, or maybe more so for your content or your private practice, where can they find you?
Mhm. Yeah, so you can find me on Journey to Self Services on Instagram, as well as Melanin Mass Moms on Instagram. So that's where we're most active. So through my private practice, if you're looking for community, Melanin Mass Moms, journeytoselfservices.com. But yeah, that's where you can find
Amazing.
me.
And I'll make sure to link it all in the show notes. Thank you so
Hmm.
much for being
Awesome.
here. What an awesome
Thank
conversation.
you. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for tuning in. Keep on shining. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Sparkle Project. Loved what you heard? Share this episode with a friend, and don't forget to leave a rating and review to show your support for the show. We'll be back next week with another episode. See you then.